Bitcoin is absorbing billions of dollars of sell pressure every single day, and the price is barely flinching. It's absolutely incredible. So every week, James Check, my favorite Bitcoin analyst, sends out 2 updates typically, and he goes through the latest statistics on buying and selling behavior of Bitcoin, and to the best of our knowledge, who's selling and how long they've held the Bitcoin that they are selling. Of course, you don't know who these people actually are. It's all anonymous, but you can tell on the Bitcoin blockchain when somebody who's held Bitcoin for 5 years and it's just been sitting there on the blockchain suddenly transfers that Bitcoin to Coinbase. And again, you don't know who it is because you can tell those coins woke up. And typically, if you've been sitting on coins for 5 years and you transfer them to Coinbase, you're probably going to sell them, because otherwise, why would you send them from your, deep, dark, safe, cold storage of BitKey or wherever you got it? Why would you wake up one day and send the coins to Coinbase unless you plan to sell them? That's typically what you do. That's why you send coins that haven't moved for a long time to an exchange. Okay, so the same theme has been playing out for the last month or two with James Check, which is he's just flabbergasted by how much sell pressure Bitcoin has been able to absorb. The kind of sell pressure that absolutely would have dumped Bitcoin into a bear market similar to 2018 or 2022 or 2014 if you go back far enough. You can tell when a huge amount of sell pressure ramps up simultaneously. If the buy pressure is not there to counteract it, the price has to go down. Ultimately, the price reflects who has more firepower. Whether sellers want to sell more or buyers want to buy more determines what the price is in a marketplace with supply and demand. So that is what's playing out. And every 24 hours, somewhere between $50 billion and $80 billion changes hands. Now, a lot of that is just stupid day traders trading back and forth, and, who cares? But billions of that is Bitcoin that's waking up from people who held it from anywhere from a few years to 5 or 7 years or even longer. And it's people that are deciding to improve the lives of themselves and their families. And a lot of that sell pressure is people coming from people who believe that Bitcoin is still subject to a 4-year cycle, and that we tend to get 3 up years and 1 down year. And they think that the $126,000 peak as of 35 days ago, literally it's been 5 weeks. I mean, it's ridiculous how short people's attention spans are. They think the $126,000 peak from 5 weeks ago was the marketplace all-time high, and that there's going to be a brutal bear market in 2026, and the price could drop down to $80,000 or something like that. So first of all, $80,000 is not that much different than 105. What is that, like a 25% drop? So if you're giving up 1,000% potential upside because you're scared of a potential 25% drop, first of all, statistically, that makes 0 sense. That's that's just the dumbest thing ever. But there are people doing that. And of course, they're trying to, they think they're going to play smart. They think they're going to sell it at $105,000. They're going to buy it back at $80,000. Everybody who tries to do this gets burned. I can't believe that nobody learns their lesson after touching the hot stove. But anyway, there's a ton of people doing that. There's a ton of OG Bitcoiners, buying themselves and their children nice things. There's a ton of people who, bought in the dip of 2022 and 2023 that are buying themselves nice things here in 2025. It's just crazy, the amount of sell pressure. But again, Bitcoin's price barely flinches, which means out there is a massive, massive amount of demand that is willing to just sit there and gobble up those coins as those people cough them up. And these are not crazy day traders on Wall Street who are throwing the price all over the place. These are people who are calm, level-headed, and they say, with Bitcoin at 105, I'll nibble at it. I'll just nibble at it every time the price comes to me. I'll just nibble some more. So they're not putting enough buy pressure to move the price upward, because if they were, obviously the price would be higher, but they are putting enough buy pressure to keep the price from going down. And the reason for that is because they're just not willing to let it go down because they want the Bitcoin. So if they thought it was going to go down and stay down, they would just wait and they would, fill their portfolios with Bitcoin at much cheaper prices. But clearly, the people who are buying are not willing to risk missing out on the Bitcoin. So every time it dips, the dips get bought up. And so what happens when that is happening is you can tell that there's a massive amount of buy pressure in the marketplace. There's a massive demand for Bitcoin. And right now it's being offset by new Bitcoin supply that's coming alive for people who have not moved their Bitcoin in a while. But those people can only sell once. When somebody that bought a Bitcoin for $1,000 is selling it for $100,000 and making 100 times their money, that new buyer is now sitting on $100,000 Bitcoin. They're not going to sell their Bitcoin when it's 106 if they bought it at 105. I mean, investors want significant returns before they part with their assets. It doesn't matter what it is. You don't buy a stock on the stock market hoping for 1% return. You don't sell it until it's up 20%, 25%, 100%, 1,000%. It's got to be up some meaningful amount. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. So there is a massive amount of demand in the marketplace for Bitcoin right now, and it is only a matter of time until the supply runs out. Everybody selling a Bitcoin can only sell it once, and those Bitcoin just keep getting gobbled up by everybody sitting, gobbling up every single price dip. Eventually, the sellers will run out of Bitcoin that they're willing to sell. It always happens because 95% of the world does not own Bitcoin and only 5% of the world does own Bitcoin. And most of the 5% that does own Bitcoin doesn't own very much. It's like $50 or $200 or not much. Now, obviously, there's some OG Bitcoiner whales that own a lot more, but most of the selling pressure is coming from people that just don't own that much Bitcoin, which means they don't have that much they even could sell. So first of all, if you own Bitcoin, don't sell it. Don't be one of the idiots selling at 105,000 a coin. And second, imagine how tight this spring is wound when the sell pressure finally eases up and that buy pressure is still there. All the people buying, including me, that's why I sold gold and silver last week. And as soon as the check hits, I'm going to buy more Bitcoin with it. And I'm going to increase my Bitcoin stash by somewhere between 5% and 10%. So when all the dust settles, either this coming week or the week after this week, I will have 5 or 10% more Bitcoin than I did before. And obviously I will own 0 gold and silver. So that's a trade I'm willing to make because I think the supply and demand imbalance is so ridiculously in Bitcoin's favor right now that I want more Bitcoin than I thought I wanted. The price dipped, it stayed down, it's irrational, it's on sale, and I'm not willing to let the marketplace dangle $105,000 Bitcoin in front of me and be completely irrational. If the marketplace wants to be irrational with their Bitcoin, that's fine. They can hand it to me because I will be more rational with their Bitcoin. And so I'm happy to swap gold and silver for their Bitcoin when they're willing to sell it to me for such a cheap price. So that's what's playing out. There's millions of people all over the world like me and people who manage massive portfolios on Wall Street that are just sucking up every bit of Bitcoin every time the price dips. It frees up some additional capital to buy more Bitcoin at a discount. Eventually, the sellers will run out of Bitcoin that they are willing to sell. The buy pressure will still be unrelenting, and the price can only go one way. Now, in the short term, could the sellers overwhelm the buyers on a temporary basis and the price go lower? Of course. You never know. But what happens is you do know that the buyers will always eventually outrun the sellers, overwhelm the sellers. And at that point, the price has to go up. And at this point, the spring is wound so tight. There is so much demand pressure in the marketplace, and there's so little supply to offset that massive demand pressure that it is only a matter of time until we get an epic price run. And I want to own as much Bitcoin as conceivably possible when that epic price run happens, which is why I'm trying to buy as much as I conceivably can right now, in this case with the proceeds of gold and silver. So I would buy as much Bitcoin as I possibly could right now. That's what I'm doing. That's my advice, not financial advice, but it seems to make all the sense in the world. And when the price finally does really start running, it's going to be epic and it's going to be so fun. And I love it.